There's a hidden Bitcoin buying frenzy, and they're buying silently. Now, by they, I mean the big banks. And this is the exact same playbook that they pulled 20 years ago with gold. When gold ETFs first launched from Wall Street, banks were buying that secretly as well, and that had a major impact on gold's price. We're seeing the same playbook orchestrate with Bitcoin. So at the end of this video, we're going to look at gold's price in relation to Bitcoin's price and give ourselves a potential target for Bitcoin in 2025. Now, one of the things we're going to be looking at is the banks reporting numbers. Now, unfortunately, we don't have Q2. The reason we don't have Q2, even though that the quarter ended June 30th, is that the big banks can wait 45 days or until August 14th, 2025, because the reports are due 45 days after the end of each quarter. Now, during this period, until August 14th, we're hearing rumors that they're secretly acquiring more and more Bitcoin. But I said large banks. So who exactly is secretly buying Bitcoin? Well, when we're looking at the top 10 US banks by assets, we're talking about most of them are actually doing this. Goldman Sachs now has $710 million in Bitcoin ETFs as of the end of Q1. Like I said, we're still waiting for the Q2 data. JPMorgan Chase is involved, PNC Bank is involved. They just 5x their Bitcoin exposure quarter over quarter. The America's oldest bank, BNY Mellon, is involved, also Bank of America and Wells Fargo. So like I said, most major US banks out of the top 10 are acquiring additional Bitcoin. Now, BNY is a little bit smaller. They are now up to $13 million worth of Bitcoin. PNC Bank has soared their holdings. They went from 10 million to 67 million, and they're also choosing to invest in Bitcoin through ETFs. Now, like I said, this is the same playbook we saw with gold all the way back in 2004, and I'm going to tell you how this is going to have an effect on Bitcoin's price. When gold ETFs launched, gold was only trading $400 an ounce. And you fast forward to today, it's trading over $3,000. Now, Goldman Sachs increased their exposure very heavily. They have 83% more now, and that's how they got up to 710 million. And it's not just U.S. banks, it's financial institutions across the globe. This is the Abu Dhabi Sovereign Wealth Fund, one of the most successful and richest sovereign wealth funds out there. Even they are adding to their Bitcoin position via BlackRock and their IBIT Bitcoin ETF. According to their latest filing, they're now up to 400 million. So there is secret accumulation of Bitcoin happening behind the scenes. Now, this is a rumor, but we're seeing reports that BNY Mellon has increased their position by 90%. We will know this in a couple weeks. Now, Bitcoin Historian is known for breaking news, so we'll check back on this in a half month. Now, I said there's similarities to what the banks did with gold as there is to Bitcoin. So for that, we got to go into the data. Now, gold ETFs launched November 18th, 2004. And you can see gold had a little volatility. These are weekly candles in the days that followed, in the months that followed, but then gold went on a huge bull run. It's very similar to what we saw with Bitcoin. There's a little bit of heightened volatility in the weeks and the days after Bitcoin's ETF launch. Then it went into a very solid bull run. Now, gold has had some pretty good targets that have exceeded a lot of people's expectations. We have a very, very classic cup and handle pattern, and we see gold is breaking out. Now, normally, I do not like to use a log chart for breakouts, whether bull flag pennants or cup and handle patterns. But I notice when you go to the regular chart, it's actually not bullish enough. Once we measure this from the handle breakout or even the neckline breakout, which is most bullish, gold has exceeded those expectations. So that's why we're going to use the logarithmic chart here. When you use the log chart, you can see we still have a higher target for gold, and that's essentially going to be a stone's throw away from $4,000. But did you know you can actually track Bitcoin's price via ounces of gold? That is this chart right here. So this price history right here shows the amount of ounces of gold each Bitcoin can give you. Now, originally Bitcoin launch couldn't give you anything. It give you a speck, a dust, a gold flake, basically what you get on a tomahawk steak at a fancy restaurant. But then Bitcoin became a real asset, and during the 2017 pump, one Bitcoin would net you 15 ounces of gold. Now, of course, during that bear market, there's a huge decline, where then that would go from 15 ounces of gold all the way down to 3 ounces of gold. So if you traded into gold at the peak here, you did great. But then gold and Bitcoin has essentially formed a little bit of a local top, and that's going to be right around 37 up to about 40 ounces of gold per Bitcoin. But I notice on the regular chart, not the log chart, gold and Bitcoin has been stuck in a parallel trading range. And so I have some predictions here. What does Bitcoin's price look like? if Bitcoin goes to the top of this trading range. So we're going to look at two different numbers. We're going to look at 45 ounces of gold, and we're going to look at 50 ounces of gold per Bitcoin. But we're going to have different price targets as well. Now, we do have the $4,000 target, but we're also going to do around $3,400, and that's going to be right at the local peak that we had just seen. All right, so what do the numbers give us? So at $3,400 an ounce, Bitcoin, whether it's 45 ounces or 50 ounces, is going to give you the targets of $153,000 Bitcoin or $170,000 Bitcoin. But we want gold to be $4,000, and we want gold to be 50 ounces per Bitcoin, and that's going to give us the numbers of $180,000 Bitcoin and a $200,000 Bitcoin. And when you look at the gold Bitcoin trading pair, I think 50 is very, very doable. And when you look at the gold chart, I think $4,000 is very, very doable. And I would not sleep on some of these Bitcoin price predictions. You can see after gold ETFs launch, we had essentially a 6-year bull run. And if Bitcoin were to do the same thing, gold ETFs launched January 24, you're looking at a Bitcoin peak around 2029, 2030. So keep an eye out on that $200,000 Bitcoin this cycle, and keep an eye out on Bitcoin being worth 50 ounces of gold this cycle. Very, very doable target. So I'm DZ for Discover Crypto. Hopefully this alerts you to all the secret accumulation of Bitcoin that is happening by the most powerful financial institutions in the world. And this is the same playbook they did with gold. Just do not miss this opportunity. I'm DZ for Discover Crypto, and I'll see you at the top with your Bitcoin.